Good evening, everyone, and welcome inside Upon Further Review. I'm Eric Dudkevich alongside the coach Shannon Griffith. Week 2 upon us, and we'll be talking to you for the next hour or so here on the Upon Further Review podcast on video, on audio, anywhere you download it, your audio, and of course, 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM. Coach, good evening to you as we have wrapped up Week 1, heading into Week 2 now.
Yeah, it's off and running, I guess you would say, as we break from the starting gate as thoroughbreds, and we're not even to the first turn, and we're in this mindset now where it just keeps churning. And had a good game on Friday night there at Leo with Bishop Luers, and the thing about it is we saw it wasn't a very successful Friday night for the SAC per se. They were 2-8 overall, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But there were some big wins. I think Columbia City had a real big win on the road at Northwood, which is a difficult place to play. And there were some other wins that were impressive. So we'll get the chance to talk about that as well.
Yeah, big night as we kick off another week and another season of high school football across Northeast Indiana. Like you mentioned, 2-8 for the SAC, but all non-conference games. Of course, Leo and Bishop Luers leading the way for us over last Friday night as the 1380 game of the week presented by Midwest Box Breaks, and we were out there at Leo, Coach. A pretty decent game, I think, to start off. I think when you're talking Week 1, it's a case of especially for both of these teams, a lot of new faces or a lot of unfamiliar faces in positions across the board, and especially at the quarterback play. And so it takes some time to get settled in, but when you talk about getting settled in, especially Leo with the 14-7 victory, I think, the heavy dose of their running back, Nate Foster, was really a big move for them, and just the opportunity to kind of open things up into that second quarter and that second half as well. And then the defense too for Leo holding on and getting that victory 14-7 at Leo Stadium over the Bishop Luers Knights.
Yeah, I mean, that game really just came down to basically two plays. And when you think about it, I mean, it was the key mistakes in that game is what cost a chance for Luers in some respects. But I think Nate came out of the second half, got the interception that set up the go-ahead touchdown for Leo after Luers had scored before halftime on a great throw by Thomas Reichert. He's a talented sophomore, but his inexperience, and he'll grow from it, he'll get better from it, but he makes that bad throw there to start the second half. And then in the fourth quarter there, right before Leo was going to punt it and give maybe a chance back to Bishop Luers after a timeout, Luers came out on the field and lined up with 12 men, and that 12-man penalty cost them a chance to get the ball back and get an opportunity to possibly tie it up, but it gave Leo an automatic first down, and that's how they lost that game, pure and simple, because it was an even ball game back and forth.
Yeah, dynamic game from Nate Foster, 22 carries, 133 yards, and a touchdown. He'll be joining us here momentarily on Upon Further Review. Excited to talk to him tonight about Leo's big win. Some other games in their area. We talked about just two SAC schools winning this Friday night. We saw Northside with a big win, 21-7 over Northridge out at Chambers Field, and then Northrop going on the road to New Haven and getting a 41-0 shutout. David Callison with 5 touchdowns. That game did end in the third quarter a little bit early with a running clock. There was some fighting and incidents among the fans at New Haven, at John Young Field. None of the players, none of the coaches involved. And, a lot going on there. Wound up that game getting called early. Nevertheless, the Bruins start 1-0 again. Hamilton Southeastern beats Carroll 14-7 in a close game. Ron Colley of Indianapolis beating Dwenger 3-0. So that's an interesting score. Yeah. You don't see that a lot, much of anywhere. That's almost like a soccer score. But that one going on. Indianapolis Cecina beats Concordia 48-28. Marion over Southside 48-42. Southside Archers putting up 42 points in a loss. And of course, another big one in our area here in town, Warsaw getting the win over Snyder 38-30. That was a knockdown drag out, so that was a big game. And Westfield gets the 35-0 victory at home over Homestead. So, we'll talk about a little bit more of those teams later, but I think just really, a new season upon us and an exciting way to start, and we saw a lot of different results. And I think, even in loss, some of those teams, they have a lot to look forward to. I mean, Carroll hanging with Hamilton Southeastern, Dwenger hanging with Ron Colley, and Southside, what they were able to do. It should be interesting to see what becomes of some of those teams as the year rolls on.
Absolutely, and you'll get your biggest improvement, more than likely when you go from week 1 to week 2. And so these teams get a chance to come back and practice and get some redemption. But in that Snyder-Warsaw game, turnovers and, that led to touchdowns was the key in that ball game, because I believe Warsaw got 17 points off of turnovers. Wow. So these are the games that you just can't win games by turning the ball over.
Absolutely. So plenty more to talk about from some of those games, and we'll look ahead later on in the show. But right now, we're going to go ahead and bring in our guest for this week. After a great performance on Friday night, we welcome in now from Leo High School. We have running back Nate Foster from the Leo Lions. Nate, thanks for joining us tonight here on Upon Further Review.
Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. Well, you're guest one of this year, so that tells you something. It tells everybody out there what a big performance for you and the Leo Lions on Friday night. I think, that 14-7 victory, you kind of carried the load, 133 yards, 2 touchdowns. Coming out of that game, week 1, just getting that first game under your belt for this year for this Leo team. Just talk about that big win and just how satisfying that victory was last Friday night.
It was pretty satisfying. A lot of people didn't have us winning. I saw a lot of scores saying that we were going to lose by possessions, and it really motivated us to come out there and play our best.
Sure. Talk about this team. I mean, we talked about it even on the pregame show. The new quarterback situation. You guys graduated a lot, especially the big names like Brock Schott and Landon Hepner, and you kind of came on. I mean, in a lot of ways, that latter half of the year really started to make a name for yourself and carry that into this year. Talk about the work this team has put in this offseason to get ready to be ready to go on week 1 and just putting it all together and finding the success that you guys had last Friday.
I mean, yeah, over the summer, we put in work almost every day, pushing sleds, working out during the summer, doing extra conditioning just so we could be ready for this moment. Because we know that we have some big expectations to fill this year, and we're hoping that we'll be able to.
Sure. 22 carries, 133 yards, and a touchdown. What was clicking for you? I was down on the sidelines. It took a little bit to get things going, but you kept encouraging your offensive linemen that late in the second quarter, that big 55-yard, I talk about it, right into our living room. I mean, literally, I was right there, almost got part of the tackle with that, but what was it, what got clicking for you guys, especially to get things and move those chains and to kind of take control of that game in the latter half stages against Lures?
It started off pretty slow. I would admit that. But our O-line, I talked to my O-line a lot during the game and on the sidelines that we just need to keep pushing, keep going. block, that extra just second that you hold on to your block. And I promised my linemen that if they did that, I would go the distance and get past the second level.
Well, you had a nice couple runs in the key critical downs on Friday night, and a game where you guys missed a lot of talent from previous season with, Brock Schott now being in Miami and Landon Hepner, who's at Army now. That load has kind of been put on your shoulders a little bit to make up for some of that scoring power that they had. But on Friday, what would you say was your biggest asset preparing for that game coming into it? I noticed a lot of cramping on Lures' sideline as the game wore on, but you guys seem to be pretty well hydrated and fresh the entire game. I mean, what was the key to get that that type of conditioning before this big game on Friday night, and what led up to it in terms of your, what did you do to help that?
So from last year, we don't have as much depth as we do from last year. So our coaches have been really on us about conditioning and hydrating to make sure that we are able to stay on the field, even in long and hard games, because there's going to be a lot of those this year. So we've just been conditioning, and our coach has been preaching about us hydrating every day, going to school, making sure you drink water during the school day, during practice, and after practice.
Yeah. Now, the other thing is I saw you on defense a little bit on Friday night. Is that something that you're going to do, pretty much all season, or just kind of spelling guys when they need it on the defensive side?
Just when guys need it. Like if someone's tired, Helen Hobart or Isaiah Detmers, I'll be a sub. Sure, they guys get the rest too.
Sure. Talk a little bit about your football career. Where it kind of started for you. What your background and coming up through maybe youth football or whatever to get to this point to be the primary ball carrier for the Leo Lions. Just talk about your football journey a little bit, where things got started for you.
So I actually started playing football when I was, I think, 8 or 9 years old back in Michigan. And I played for a team called the Warren Jets. I started my way up from flag football all the way to varsity. And we went to the state championship every year but one. But we only won the state championship 1 year. And then transferred here. I didn't get to play my freshman year because I got injured. And then I just slowly worked my way up the depth chart.
Sure. What brought you to the Fort Wayne area? You said you came in from Michigan. Well, why? How did Leo kind of enter the fold for you in getting here to Northeast Indiana?
Well, my dad got a promotion on his job, and that forced us to move over here. And when we were coming down here for the first time, it was between 3 schools that we decided to go to. It was either Leo, Snyder, or I think Homestead. And we picked Leo.
Okay. Well, I think it worked out well for you and worked out well for Leo. Talk about the being part of the program, and you're a senior, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, and just see the growth of the program, especially under Coach Dorfler the last couple of years, where things have come for this Leo. It's exciting to be out there on Friday nights just to see. But the growth of this program and where this program is headed, just talk a little bit about that and what you've been able to see firsthand as you've kind of grown up in the system as well.
I think the culture here has definitely changed a lot. We already had a winning mentality, a winning culture coming into this year and coming in multiple years, but it's really stepped up with Dorfler being our head coach. He preaches about us, wanting us to go far, pushing ourselves past the limits. And even when I'm gone, I think this team would be great for many years to come, as we're going to start playing Homestead and even Bishop Chatard in the near future.
Sure. For you, what have you worked on most? I mean, we look at these stats from last season here upon further review. 1,300 yards, comes out to 9.8 yards per carry with 11 touchdowns. What is it about your game? What have you focused on as a running back to kind of continue to develop your skills, especially now as you head into your senior season?
I've been working a lot on my quick burst, getting past the line, being faster, and at the same time being able to slow down enough to let my linemen get to their blocking seam so I can hit the gap. And that's been like a huge part because there's many plays last year where I could have ran even further, but because I was so fast or so excited, it didn't work out.
That's all right. Well, it's certainly working out for you this year. Coach, you have anything you want to piggyback off of?
No, I just think looking for big things this year from you, young man. I think you've got a lot of talent, and I think you got a great opportunity to be a leader on this Leo football team and keep things going like you did on Friday night and keep battling the rest of the year.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, thanks for joining us tonight, Nate. Glad to have you as our first guest here on Upon Further Review for the 2025 season. Leo running back Nate Foster joining us. Best of luck to you and the Leo Lions the rest of the way, and I'm sure we'll be catching you down the road.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you so much. That was Nate Foster joining us from Leo. And Coach, what an impressive night for him. I think, like he kind of mentioned, you get into the system, you got some new things. It takes a little bit to get going, but I heard it. He kept imploring those offensive line, give me the holes and the openings, and I'll take it. And that second quarter, he breaks off that 55-yard run, and that kind of really changed the momentum of the game. I know Luers had that touchdown right before halftime, but I think realistically, I felt like Leo really had some confidence after that and to go up early and just hold on after that.
Yeah, I think that run, he made a great cut. He made several great runs on Friday where he made some great cuts in the hole and really had great vision. And that's the one thing I think that makes him a pretty good running back is his vision. He's able to see things, and then when he makes a cut, he goes north and south, and he's not trying to outrun somebody or what we call circle them. He tries to get his north and south as quick as possible, and he always is leaning forward, so he gets that forward extra yardage when he does that. So you can tell he's a very intelligent young man. You can tell that it's important to him. And on Friday night, he showed why. And, like I said, he had to take on some more burden this year because of losing the productivity of the two best kids last year for him, and Brock and Landon. And he did a great job on Friday night doing what he was capable of doing, but not trying to do too much that led to mistakes. And that's the one thing that I noticed by him and being a older player this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And you notice there he's first team all NE8 from a year ago. One interesting note about that, Coach, that our friend Dylan Sin from the Journal Gazette pointed out, he is the only returning skills player to make the all-conference team in the NE8 back this year. Everybody else pretty much seniors. There's like 3 or 4 new quarterbacks in the league. But Nathan Foster, a junior running back who, as a junior, was first team all conference back. He's the only skills position back from that, at least from the offensive side of things. And so, it's a remarkable to see. But he's a phenomenal player, and like he said, he's overcome injuries and he's back in the fold of things. And I think he's become the bell cow for that Leo team, and I think that's very important to have, especially as they kind of figure out their quarterback situation and get a new person in there. We mentioned Esquera, Grayson Esquera had transferred to Carroll, and so the new quarterback in there who, really showed some flashes of good stuff.
Yeah.
But I think when you have somebody like Nate back there, really is going to help those guys develop, and really a lot of those guys develop across the board for the Leo Lions.
Yeah, and Stoller did well running the offense. He made some really good decisions with ball in his hands, and I was impressed with his grittiness, I guess you would say, where he, wasn't afraid to tuck it and run and try to get the tough yardage. And, I think we got to also acknowledge, too, the guys up front did a great job blocking that for the most part, that talented defensive line for Bishop Luers. But the other young man that came in and was a lead back in that second half for the most part was Paul Woods. And he had a lot of key blocks that helped spring Nate on some other runs that garnered big yardage because of his ability to go up there and block. And then he ended one drive with a touchdown, which I think was a reward from Coach Dorfler.
Absolutely.
About, how they got down there. They rewarded him by giving him a chance to punch it in the end zone. So I thought that was a kind of a neat thing to reward a kid for what he was doing as a player.
Yeah, looking at the stats a little bit, Titus Stoller goes 4 for 9 for just 13 yards. So not a lot of passing from that Leo team. Didn't really need to. As a team offensively, Leo rushes for 180 yards. 133 of those go to Nathan Foster. Stoller had 29, and then Paul Woods with the 18 yards and the touchdown. So a really good ground attack for them. And, that kept things rolling for them. I felt like Luers on the other side was more of the passing team that was trying to find the running game, whereas Leo was the running team kind of developing its passing game. So it was really a kind of a clash in styles, so to speak, but also just two different styles. Of course, for Luers, Thomas Reichert, 12 for 21, 98 yards and a touchdown with one interception. And then the split backs between the sophomores of Epperson and Gaither, they combined for 128 yards. But that nifty touchdown there to end the first half there for Luers.
Thomas Reichert's throw. Yeah.
Another Javens playing for Luers as a sophomore. So, you see a lot of sophomores for Luers in the backfield. I mean, and quite honestly, I look at those guys and the running backs, they seem a lot smaller to me than what we're accustomed to see them. And, but I think too, like the sophomore quarterback, 2 sophomore running backs, a sophomore wide receiver. So I think as those guys come along again in the Luers system, that's going to bode well for them down the line. And, it's just your first varsity experience. It's new for everybody.
Yeah, and I believe Thomas Reichert's going to be a really good quarterback, and we're going to talk a lot about him as he grows into the position because he's got all the mechanics to be a top-tier kid. He's 6'2", I think it was 190, I think they had him listed as, and, he's got a really good throwing motion. He's very well taught up in terms of the mechanics and stuff. He's just going to have to learn that you cannot force throws, especially when you're just staring down the receiver. And that's the one thing that I know Kyle Lindsey, he will prepare that kid and get him to the point of not making that mistake because he's done it with several different kids, guys that even had lesser talent than what Reichert has. He's done that with. So Thomas is going to be in a great situation, but the touchdown throw that he made and dropped it in, that was fantastic. An impressive throw. I mean, I don't know if there's any 3-year starters that could do that like that. Maybe Jimmy Sullivan could make that type of throw, but that kid really dropped it in there in a critical point in that game.
Yeah, and I think tight end Chuck McBride, and he's a senior. I think he's going to be big for them as the year goes on, and it was a good start, I think, for both teams. One team's got to win, one team's got to lose. The penalty in the end kind of cost the Luers Knights. But Leo moves on to Angola this week. They'll host the Hornets at Leo Stadium again. And then also Luers travels to Andrean up in the Maryville and Gary area. That's Saturday night. So they'll have a Saturday night game between Luers and Andrean. And Andrean is one of those schools that year in and year out, is a powerhouse in the smaller classes. Now they got it handed to them against Maryville last Friday night, but that doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean anything with this team. 78 and 38 in the last 10 years with Chris Skinner as their coach. And when you talk about Andre and Lures, I mean, that's something you see, a lot in the postseason, it seems like. So that's a fun one to have in the regular season. I think the last time these two teams played, 2014 semi-state. 2022 semi-state. So Lures beat Andrean at 2022 semi-state to go to the state finals, which they ultimately lost. But, they're again a powerhouse that gets down there, so that should be a fun one Saturday night. And then the all purple game with Leo and Angola on Friday night, and looking at Angola, they beat DeKalb 14-6, so they got it done there. And I know new defensive coordinator for Angola, Seth Wilcox, who was the DeKalb coach a year ago. So he came back, and that's a big win for him at DeKalb, and that whole team led by Andy Thomas there, who's now over 150 wins in his career. So congrats to him as well.
Yeah. And again, that Lures game is on Saturday because of a shortage of high school officials again.
Oh, wow.
In that area. And that's the reason why that game was moved to Saturday, so that they could, have plenty of officials for Friday night, and they didn't have enough. So that'll be good for Lures, because that's a big trip and a chance for them to regroup and, not be burdened by school and getting out early and things like that. And, it's not uncommon. We used to play Saturday games all the time back in the day, especially Lures and Dwenger would play most of their games on Saturday nights, because that was kind of their tradition. So
sure.
A big game for them, and a big game for Leo to see if they can come back and hold serve against Angola.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we talked about it, Coach. The two SAC schools that win, Northside and Northrop, we can talk a little bit about them, I think, to start, because let's face it, they're the winners. And I think you got to start with Northrop, or I'm sorry, Northside. Well, either one you can start with. We can start with Northside, kind of fresh in our mind. They get the big win over Northridge, 21-7. A team that I think they had played last year, and so Northside beat them 32-20 last year, and then 2 years ago. So this is kind of the third year for them in this non-conference schedule, and that's been a fun, I don't want to say rivalry because it's Northridge and Northside, but that first week conference game for Northside, they get the big win 21-7, and really strong showing from guys like Malik Moore, 80 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Jaden Rivers, the new quarterback for Northside, a transfer in from Indianapolis Warren Central. He gets a big game in his first time as a Legend. I think he throws for 4 touchdowns in that game. And so really interesting sight to see from that Northside team. And they're a confident bunch. They have a lot of swag. And I think that big win going into week 2, that'll be great. It's all good for them as well.
Yeah, and that was a game that we kind of, put an asterisk by because of some of the things that, Northside happened to them. I think it was 2 years ago where they lost up there, and it kind of derailed them. But it'll be interesting to see how Northside handles the success. I mean, moving to that next game, and you got a new kid in town that seems like he's fully capable at the quarterback position. And we'll have to see how that transpire. I'm
the transfer transpires. That's that actually works when you're talking about Jaden Rivers, the quarterback for Northside.
Yeah, but I'm interested to watch him because we haven't had a chance to watch him yet. So pull up some video at some point, hopefully this week. But hey, a good start for them. A good start for Northrop, irregardless of who they played. Number one, they scored a lot of points. Number two, they didn't give up a ton of points. And that's the thing that last year that burdened them most of the season was that they could score, but they just were not able to keep the other team from scoring. So that's a good confidence building win for Coach Bowen and the Bruins.
Yeah, I mean, Northrop, they get the 41-0 victory over New Haven. And I mean, look, let's face it. Anytime you put those numbers next to Northrop, the idea of them scoring 40 points, or they shutting out a team, or doing both in the same game. I mean, a 41-0 where Northrop wins. I mean, let's be honest, most of the time we're used to seeing that on the other side of things where it's a 41-0 loss. So, and keep
Right.
in mind, this was a game a year ago with New Haven, where it was a 53-48 shootout victory for Northrop. And so for them to come back a year ago in the following year, and look, David Callison throws for 5 touchdowns, and Quay got his and got a touchdown. And I think, the multiple, but the defensive side of things, because I think New Haven was another year older under their new coach, Vance Shearer from at New Haven, and he's their new coach there. I mean, this is his second year. You get a whole offseason. And really, I mean, we saw them a year ago. They struggled at a lot of positions. And so, they've got a new quarterback. Sherwood Haydock's grandson was the starting quarterback there. Trey McCarney, I believe is his name. So for Northrop's defense to be able to get a shutout like that, pretty impressive what they were able to do on the defensive side of things. And one of the things we talked about with Quentin Bowen at the High School Media Day was the experience at the secondary with guys like Don LeRae Reese. And then, I mean, you have to, I would have to think somebody like Davion Surrey, who came in over from from Lures. So I think I think they've got a lot of weapons. And so how does Northrop seize that momentum? Because a year ago, they win 53-48 in week 1. And then they don't win again until the last game of the regular season and finish 2-8 overall. So I think it's going to be really interesting this week for Northrop to just kind of keep that level head about them, to keep moving along and to kind of go from there. And just looking at their schedule real quick, let me pull that up here if I can. They host Huntington North. And Huntington North is not the Huntington North of last year just by virtue of you don't have Tony Decker at quarterback. But they only lost to Eastbrook by 1 point, 21-20.
That one caught my eye.
That says a lot about where Huntington North is, I think, to me, coming off of that dream season from a year ago.
Yeah, that game caught my eye because Eastbrook has always been a traditional good program year in, year out. Now, we don't know the dynamics. Maybe they lost a lot of kids as well, and they're playing youngsters and such. But that one caught my eye more than anything. So I got a feeling that this week will be a good test and a measuring stick for Northrop to see where they're at because they're going to play a much better football team.
Yeah, 152 total yards of offense for Eastbrook, 150 rush yards.
That's crazy.
100, I mean, which is so that's what I mean is like the defense was able to stop them, and they only got the 1 rushing touchdown. Yeah, those numbers aren't adding up entirely because they only have there must be some. I wonder if there was some defensive touchdowns. I'll have to
maybe.
But anyway, nevertheless, it doesn't say how the points were scored.
First week of getting all the correct stuff out of the start.
Yeah, there you go. So a rushing touchdown and a punt return touchdown for Eastbrook. It didn't account for the other one, how that came out. Nevertheless, on the Huntington North side of things, Lathan Janes was their quarterback, a sophomore, maybe a name we need to watch for. 13 for 23, 165 yards, 2 touchdowns, and then 2 picks. So they have found themselves the next quarterback, I would say, out of the gate, just by virtue of what he was able to do. And on the ground, Jemison, young man, last name Jemison, he had 140. Christian Jemison, 146 yards. So good balance from that Huntington North defense and offense, I should say. And then Jimmy Linker, 114 receiving yards. So they've got some talent. They've got some weapons back. This Huntington North, good balance. And Mike Eschbach is a really good coach, especially when he has those right players in the right fold. Look, Huntington North is a 5A school, a smaller 5A school, and Eastbrook probably 3A. But Eastbrook has been a powerhouse for many, many years. I think another one of those teams that runs the Wishbone, right, Coach?
Yeah, they run a version of it. They're more like
so.
Adams
There you
Central.
go. I mean, you always have your work cut out, so that tells you a lot about what we saw on Friday night.
I tell you, with that game, that one caught my eye, of course. But who else caught my eye? And we talked about this in the pregame show is Carroll. and
Yeah.
going down to Hamilton Southeastern in a battle, losing only 14-7. But Gabe Frenzinger, 20 of 35, 268 yards on the night. Now, he did have 3 interceptions, but it looks maybe they've got an answer for what they lost in Sullivan, because he had a pretty good night, almost 58% completion, and he spread the ball around a little bit. But the other one, I know, Sheely, who's wearing his brother's number 13, he had 8 receptions for 135 yards on the night. So he had a big night and a big long run of 50 yards. So they didn't rush the ball very well. They had negative yardage rushing for Carroll. So that's something that they'll have to address. And we talked about the graduation that hit them up front too. So in Hamilton Southeastern, only getting 14 points. You got to feel comfortable. You got to feel excited about what that brings to the table. And the Neuhauser kid led them in tackles with 13. That kid's a player, and I got a feeling he's going to get an offer at some point in time. From what I've seen of that young man, I think he's a tremendous player. So we get Carroll this week against another juggernaut in Center Grove. So we'll see with our own 2 eyes this Friday.
Yeah. And we talked about the quarterback play and the receiving play. One key part for Carroll was that Jaden Van Pelt was not in that game. We not entirely sure of the circumstances there, but nevertheless, he did not play in week 1 against Hamilton Southeastern. Our friends over at Outside the Huddle said, it sounds like he's expected to go in week 2. So we'll just kind of see how that plays out. But so add him to the mix. That's going to be exciting to see, because 20 receptions as a team for Carroll, and leading the way was Harrison Shaley, Owen's younger brother, like you mentioned, wearing 13, the number 13 that Owen wore. And I actually ran into their grandfather, who was my elementary school gym teacher at Weiser Park, Ron Long, Mr. Long. And he was telling me that how phenomenal Harrison is as an athlete. And so looking for big things from him that year. So it's great to see that. And so, we'll be hearing that Shaley name all throughout the year.
Yeah. And
in that regard, number 13 Shaley, I think that is going to be so cool to hear over and over again on the PA system out at Carroll. But so just, a tough loss for Carroll, but like you mentioned, I think, hanging in there with a team like Hamilton Southeastern, because, those teams, that's a tough place to play. It's a very successful program. And I'm trying to think back, like, what that score was a year ago. I'm going to pull that up here. But
I don't know if they don't.
45-21.
Yeah.
So,
The thing I want to point out here is their defensive play, because they only gave up about 200 some odd yards of total offense to Hamilton Southeastern. Only 149 passing and 90 total yards of rushing. So 2 solid defenses, you would say, there went at it in that ball game, similar to what Bishop DeWanger and Ron Colley did. And so good defensive play. So maybe Carroll has enough to reload and get things going like they did a year ago. So we'll find out against Center Grove, because that's going to be a dandy of a game, because Center Grove's got some big time players coming up here.
Absolutely. Well, Coach, we'll go ahead and take a break here upon further review. When we come back, we'll have more of the show. We'll talk some more of the games as we move the chains to week 2 and get ready for all those games on Friday and Saturday night. And we'll break down more here on Upon Further Review. You're listening to Upon Further Review on 1380 The Fan, 100.9 FM, and anywhere you get video and audio podcasts.
Welcome back to Upon Further Review. Alongside Eric Dutkiewicz, I'm the coach, Shannon Griffith, and we appreciate you joining in here tonight, as well on all the different platforms like YouTube and X. We appreciate all that as well, and those listeners choosing to pick us up on 1380 The Fan. So we appreciate all your listening hour here of high school football within the Northeast Indiana area. And we shift gears here now, working our way into week 2 of this high school football season in and around the Summit City. And once again, we've got some really good contests coming up on this week of games. Of course, we will be out at Carroll for the Carroll and Center Grove game. That will be our game of the week on 1380 The Fan, a pregame at 6 p.m. and doing things a little different there as well. You can pick us up as well on Facebook Live for our pregame show. And had the little technical difficulties last week, but we did get it running and up and going. So you can catch us there as well. Jim Shevlin will join us for that, and we'll get you set for Friday night games. But again, another great set of out-of-conference games on Friday night, and I don't think there's any better game maybe on the schedule this week than Snyder having to go up to Kendallville and play.
Yeah.
And play up there because they're coming off of a big loss to Warsaw. They got to go to Kendallville, which is another tough place to go play. And last year, East Noble was able to do a lot of things, run the ball, pass the ball. Unfortunately, it was that game with Lightning that then they had to come back the next day at 10 a.m. and go play at Northside. And unfortunately, that ended up being the game that they lost against Snyder. But that game's got a lot of flavor to it, I guess you could say, because I think Snyder's going to be in for a dogfight.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we saw what, two things. Well, you look at the Snyder situation, their defense, a lot of new faces and new places and coming in with a new quarterback and things like that. And plus, we talked about it earlier in the show with other teams, the whole idea of, the fact that you're playing against kind of that wishbone offense that you saw in Warsaw. Now, you're not going to see that same type of offense out of East Noble this week by any stretch of the imagination. But, oh, by the way, East Noble has Riley Biddle, who can light it up. Alex Scott had a tremendous game on Friday night. So it is a different challenge for Snyder. And it's a different challenge for East Noble, too, after their 42-0 win over Wayne. So this should be an exciting contest up in Kendallville, a very, hostile environment, if you will. So this should be a fun game for Friday night. And really, as East Noble kind of tries to establish that they're one of the top guys in 4A and one of the top teams in our area now, that, we talk about Snyder, we talk about Carroll, we talk about Dwenger, Homestead. Hey, what about East Noble? And I think this is an opportunity for them to take that next step and to prove they belong in that conversation here locally.
Yeah. And again, it's a team coming off a tremendous season in Coach Stewart's first year there. And coming up with a lot of expectations this year based upon what happened a year ago. And now you got Snyder coming in there a little mad, a little bit, wounded and bruised from their loss against the Warsaw Tigers in a game that they cost themselves in some respects. Now, they gave up a lot of rushing yards, which I think is going to be a big, big concern for the Snyder coaching staff, because I would imagine they spent a lot of time this summer working a game plan for Warsaw because they had all that time. Now, sometimes that's good. Sometimes that's bad because all of a sudden you got the pen going too fast and thinking you're going to outguess what the Tigers are going to do. So we'll see how they rebound up there in Kendallville. It should be a dandy of a game, and that place will be packed.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking at some of the stats from Friday night, Riley Biddle, 7 for 12 for 181 yards through the air with 2 touchdowns and a pick, but then rushed for 2 touchdowns on the ground as well. Really just good showing. Ian Ramey kind of led the way from the running back position with 72 yards there and a touchdown. But and then Alex Scott, we mentioned 152 yards receiving on 4 receptions and 2 touchdowns. So a breakout game for him as well. A tremendous player who's back only a junior. So there again, we're already hearing a name. It's like, well, what happens to these guys when, they graduate and we don't have, nearly the cachet of big names like we did a year ago. But look, let's face it. These are the games. These are the times where guys are going to start making names for themselves. And Alex Scott did that out of the block. And tremendous play from him. And, East Noble has got a lot of good individual talent. And I think they show time and time again that they can really have a lot of different guys that they can rely on.
No question. And again, it's a game that I think will garner a lot of attention in and around the Northeast Indiana area.
Absolutely. So we'll look ahead at some of the other games here on Friday night there we go. Week 2, not week 1. Homestead at Noblesville. So, Coach, the Spartans head back down to the area code 317. They take it on the chin a week ago to Westfield, and now they got to head back and face Noblesville. It's going to be another tough challenge for Sparty. But this is what you kind of ask for when you schedule tough non-conference games leading into the conference slate.
Yeah, and they didn't plan on losing their quarterback either. And so now Homestead's without their, QB1 because of an injury. And now they've got to break in another guy. And I'm sure they'll have an adequate replacement, but the problem there is getting that individual up to game speed to go back down to play Noblesville, which will not be anywhere close to what they played Friday night. Westfield is one of the top teams in the state of Indiana this year. Probably has state aspirations as a football team. So they played a juggernaut. So we'll see how they rebound coming back against Noblesville. But banged up, beat up doesn't always bode well.
No, absolutely. And just trying to find some weapons, it's going to be an interesting thing for them. So best wishes to Michael White as well. We talked about Huntington North and Northrop. That should be exciting. New Haven at Northside, Coach. Northside gets the big win over Northridge on Friday. Now they host again at Chambers Field, a New Haven team that took it on the chin for Northrop. I think this one should be a pretty good, another showcase for the Legends.
Yeah, I don't know what's happened at New Haven for the drop off that they've experienced over the last 2 years, whether it's a lack of players coming out or what, where they've just got a youthful team again. And now they got to go play a team like Northside that has a great number of athletes that can cause any team problems. So again, Northside should handily win this game in setting them up for their third week game, which will be beginning of the conference. And that's when things for them will probably start being a little bit more tested as a football team to see how they respond.
Yeah, absolutely. Jaden Rivers, 5 touchdowns. Oh, that was, 5 touchdowns. Is that the right? Yeah, that's him. 5 touchdowns, 3 through the air, 19 for 24 with no turnovers for Jaden Rivers, the new Northside quarterback. That is going to be somebody to watch. Somebody new coming in from Warren Central. I'm trying to even remember, did he play a couple years back when it was Carroll versus Warren Central? We were at that game. I'd have to go back and look at the rosters to see, but nevertheless, that should be fun one. We mentioned Lures and Andrean on Saturday night up in the Maryville area, up in Lake County there. An old-fashioned Catholic schools battle that we've seen over the years. Plymouth and Columbia City added this one to the list. Columbia City gets a big win on Friday night. They lost a lot. Stratton Fuller, Grayson Bradbury as their quarterback. But, a big win on Friday night. Now looking to go two in a row at a home game in Columbia City.
Yeah, and again, that win at Northwood was an impressive win because that's not an easy place to go. And their defense had a couple big plays that helped solidify that ball game. And now they get to take on a Plymouth team coming in having lost to Tippy Valley this past week, 20-3. And so it'll be interesting, as I don't think Plymouth's offense will pose a lot of problems, but we'll see, because Columbia City ran the ball pretty well up there against Northwood. So that bodes well, because they've changed. I'm sure they've changed their offense some, adjusted here, adjusted there, because of what they lost. And that's going to be the key thing.
Yeah, looking at some of the stat lines, team rushing, Columbia City 325 yards rushing and only 91 for Northwood. Trace Parrish 168 yards and a touchdown for them. No pass completions either for Columbia City.
Right.
So you could tell Stratton Fuller is but the defense played well too. Gavin Smith, a pick 6 in the fourth quarter to kind of seal that game. Columbia City wins 27-24. So a really good showing for them. And we know what Columbia City saying, this is going to be our bread and butter here. We're going to run the football. And boy, did they, 325 yards. Another cool, out of conference matchup that we've seen the last couple of years that has been some good ones. Adams Central at Eastside. Of course, Adams Central gets the 7-0 victory over Garrett on Friday. So the state champions continue on. Another low-scoring defensive outfit. They shut out another opponent, and Garrett that didn't have the same horses in the barn as they did a year ago. New coach and that Chris Albertine, but nevertheless a strong win for them. And Eastside gets on the winning win as well. A big win over Woodland on Friday. This should be a good matchup, because I think both teams are playing well again, which we haven't necessarily seen this in the last couple of years, just because Eastside's been down a few years. I think Eastside's right there. This should be a good matchup in Butler, Indiana.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. A little surprised of the score there at Garrett. I wasn't anticipating it to be a 6-0 ball game, type of deal, because of the teams and their offenses and stuff. So, I imagine Adams Central has some things to work on that have shown, because that team's got a pretty good group of kids returning in some key positions. But Eastside, they go and beat Woodland bad. And that to me said a lot. So, is Eastside back on the rise? They're getting back to their former selves a couple of years ago.
Yeah, Job Richmond, the quarterback for Eastside, 2 passing touchdowns, 178 yards rushing to score. So kind of that's kind of the Eastside quarterback way too. And I know he kind of came on late last year as a sophomore. I think he's a junior now. Eastside gets the win 38-6 over Woodland. And then for Adams Central, they get the 7-0 victory over Garrett. Their defense, not only the shutout, but they hold Garrett to 4 first downs and 72 total yards of offense. Jamison Roach, we had him on the show a year ago, the lone scorer in that game, a rushing touchdown. So it's kind of business as usual for Adams Central, a tough, hard-nosed team. They get the job done in an impressive way and let their defense stand up. So that should be a fun one, kind of a good matchup on Friday at Butler. To watch for that one on teams from opposite ends of the Northeast Indiana area. And the final game we have on the list there, Angola at Leo. Angola, like we mentioned, got the victory over DeKalb, 12-6. Leo with the big 14-7 win in the game of the week on 1380 The Fan, presented by Midwest Box Breaks last Friday. They have another home game. If it's more of the same with what we saw last Friday, Nate Foster, it's going to be a good night for Leo. And I think, they have shown that's where it's going to be for them as the season starts out, at least. Hand the rock to Nate the Great in the backfield.
Yeah. And again, they got a home game. It works in their favor. They got confidence now. They're going to have a week to, pick up any mistakes, and they're bringing in an Angola team that's coming off a big win. So two teams that are riding high this week going into practice, and that should be another good ball game as well. And like I said, we're going to be up at Carroll at Center Grove, and Center Grove had a win over Warren Central. That was a big win for them, and they had a good rushing game. 245 yards in total rushing against a Warren Central team that probably was pretty good. And their quarterback there for Center Grove, they kind of run that run and shoot mindset that we've seen the other teams run, like Columbia City and stuff. But Oscar Sloan, a sophomore quarterback, 8 of 11 for 71 yards. So not, a productive day, not a lot of yards and such, but again, this will be a tough task for Carroll, but I'm excited to see what Carroll brings to the table because of what they did against Hamilton Southeastern down there, and that's not an easy place to go play. And I think that may have been a little bit of a shock to the people down in Indianapolis.
Absolutely. And that, of course, will, like you mentioned, be our 1380 The Fan Game of the Week, presented by Midwest Box Breaks, live Friday night from Carroll Stadium at Carroll High School. Our pregame coverage starts with the PSM High School Football Tailgate pregame show at 6 with Shannon, with Coach Shannon Griffith, Jim Shovelin, and myself at 6 o'clock. Then kickoff of the game between Center Grove and Carroll at 7. That'll be Brett Rump on the call along with Shannon. And then, of course, the Kester's post-game show powered by Pizza Hut. Following all the action, Adam Lundy and Brett Rump will have all of the coverage of Friday night. And wow, Coach, it's going to be another fun-packed Friday night, non-conference action, our last non-conference before we get into the conference play. So really opportunity to see some different games and different styles. It should be a fun Friday night. And we get to see some indie teams as well that you never know what will become of it. I think of Carson Steele when I think of Center Grove, a kid who went through Ball State, ultimately NIL offers, gets him to UCLA. Now he's part of the world champion Kansas City Chiefs. It's pretty cool. And so you never know the guys that you'll see that come and play some of those games.
Well, I'll tell you one.
The indie teams.
I'll tell you one this week will be Kobe Cherry, who's a beast of a defensive end. He's also a great pitcher on their baseball team. There was some debate whether he'd go baseball or not, but he's a Purdue commit.
Okay.
One of Barry Odom's in-state commit for Purdue, and they beat Indiana, where his brother is, who's unfortunately injured right now from a knee he got last year prior to the Notre Dame game. But that was a big battle, and that kid is an impressive kid, and he'll be fun to watch as well. And I've been told that the play-by-play booth is going to be a little packed because of Center Grove bringing a group load of their coverage as well as our coverage, and some the Carroll High School coverage. So it's going to be a packed night there at Carroll High School, because you know who's going to be there? Neon Nation is going to be there. So
we were out at Leo last week, and I joked with them. I said, because their student section, the Lions Den, is great. I said, you guys are the leader, top of the leaderboard after week 1, but I'm headed to Carroll next week. So I know they're going to be loud too. So that's going to be fun to see, and really great crowds, great teams, great fan bases across their area, and great facilities over at Carroll. I know on top of it, Wednesday night, Coach, they're doing the first ever Fort Wayne area high school volleyball game on the field at Carroll.
Wow.
Carroll and Homestead. You talk about D1 recruits. We won't go through the list of the volleyball players, but a lot of young ladies that are going to be playing at the high level college volleyball. So if you get a chance to go out and see that, a small plug for that. I know that's not football, but great athletes in our area playing volleyball as well. And it's a cool idea to do it out at the football.
Well, they're taking it from stadium. They're taking that from Nebraska, who had the largest outdoor volleyball.
Yes.
So we'll
and I
see,
did hear it came up at some SAC athletic directors meeting, and I think Carroll and Homestead doing it first is probably just as well for volleyball. So anyway, so good luck to all those athletes. And So I'll be at Carroll twice this week, but that'll be a fun night. But
Well,
anyway, so we'll see you on Friday night. Thanks for
we're gonna
joining
wrap
us
it up.
tonight.
Go
And
ahead and
we'll,
wrap it.
Yeah, for all of us here at Upon Further Review, thanks for listening. We'll catch you Friday night with Center Grove and Carroll. Have a great rest of the week, and we'll see you for more Upon Further Review.